to self-healing, self-awareness, just figuring out where you're supposed to be in these uncertain times. I am going to be doing the Edgar Cayce Guide to Self-Healing. As you saw in the first video, my book is old. It's torn up. So we are going to just be reading the book. We're going to be reading the first chapter. Like I said, just in case you're just seeing this video, I have to break it up chapter by chapter. I have a 5-month-old baby girl, and she's very demanding. So I only more likely can film a chapter at a time, especially depending on how long the chapter is. So today we're going to be reading chapter 1. My book is so broken. I can actually take this whole little introduction, including chapter 1, and then I have the rest of it right here. So I'm actually going to put the book down over here. Chapter 1, Healing as Understood by Edgar Cayce. When most people hear of the word healing, they immediately conjure up the image of snake oil and medicine men. They think that healing is an art that is principally practiced by untrained and unknowing charlatans. The fact is that healing is a genuine art today, and more ordinary people are realizing that they do not have to live with disease and pain. The vast interest in the various mind sciences indicates that there is another solution to the curse of psychosomatic disorders other than the placebo. In a booklet entitled "There's a Healing Power All Ready for You," Dr. Arthur, I'm probably butchering the guy's last name, Calendrio, wrote, "The physician doesn't heal anything by himself. He intervenes and uses his skill to set in motion the healing potential which already exists in a person. But the person must do his part to assist healing, and he begins by thinking health. Think health, visualize health, and you will set your healing process in motion. At the basis of all self-healing, especially as a practice and taught by Edgar Cayce, is the concept of holistic medicine. In his essay on Man, Alexander Pope wrote in 1733, "All are but parts of one stupendous whole, whose body nature is, and God the soul." Holistic medicine accepts then to treat the whole being as opposed to treating simply a diseased part of the body with methods which tend to suppress symptoms and disguise the true root of the disease. In our society, the traditional scheme of healing holds that physicians treat the body, psychiatrists treat the mind, priests administer, and rabbis treat the spirit, while counselors handle our emotional upsets. Healing as understood and practiced by Cayce recognizes that all of these elements are interrelated and inseparable. Cayce's concept of holistic healing has its roots in past cultures, for they were more aware than we are of the importance of the interrelationship of body, mind, and spirit. In fact, in the year 450 BC, Socrates wrote, "You ought not to attempt to cure the body without the soul. A part can never be well unless the whole is well. If the head and body are to be well, you must begin by curing the soul." Cayce's ideas on healing then are really timeless. They are at times far ahead of scientific research and at once receive validation from it. The reason Cayce's approach had to be holistic is simply that he was contacting the universal sources of intelligence and obeying the natural laws of the universe. In short, Cayce genuinely believed in the God-given ability of the human body, mind, and soul to heal themselves. Nonetheless, Cayce approached the art of healing through the body. This was where people's attention was focused, and so he met people where they stood. So in all his physical readings, his methods of healing seemed to be aimed at improving the function of a cell, an organ, or a system of activities within the body. Once he had handled the present needed within the person, he would move on to show how the disturbance within the body reflected a disturbance in the mind or the spirit. In other words, Cayce was vitally concerned with the well-being of his patients. He approached them holistically because he knew that what the body manifested was more a symptom than a cause, and he traced causes of illness rather than locking himself into symptoms. Thus, you will notice later on when we treat of Cayce's practical healings that many of his treatments dealt with exercises, diets, packs, and hydrotherapy. But hidden in his methodology was the belief that nothing could change unless the individual took responsibility for himself. He did not want the person to become dependent on him or anyone else for healing. He knew the person could heal himself once he was put on the holistic track. Cayce did not disdain methods other than the holistic approach, nor did he put down the physicians of his time. He respected traditional medicine and cooperated with doctors and nurses to bring about the total healing of his patients. Someone once asked him the question, which is the most effective school of medicine? His reply was, there is good in all methods, and they have their place. But from whence comes the healing? Whether there is administered a drug, a correcting or an adjustment of a subluxation, or the alleviating of a strain upon the muscles, or the revivifying through electrical forces, they are one, and the healing comes from within. Not by the natural methods does the healing come, though the consciousness of the individual is such that this or that method is the one that is more effective in the individual case in arousing the forces from within. Cayce was an open person. He was interested in healing his patient, and he used the occasion, as we mentioned, to lift up the patient's thoughts to a higher level of awareness. First of all, know this, not palliatives, sorry guys, but healing that is sincere of whatever nature, whether spiritual, magnetic, mechanical, allopathic, electrical, or thermal. To be of real aid for the body must bear the imprint of stamp of the universal or divine. No matter in what sphere or plane a soul may find itself, this law is ever the same. Constructive influences can only emanate from God. Hence, that which may be healing in any nature, can only come from the source. Palliatives may be injected for a time, but half a truth is worse than a whole lie, for it is deceiveth even the soul. Understanding that Cayce was primarily a holistic healer, the reader must ask himself at this point, how does one become a healer? How can you do what Cayce did, that is, contact the unconscious, universal mind, and bring balance to yourself and to your loved ones? Man must start where he is. If he cannot heal himself, how can he be a channel of healing for his fellow man? What we are offering then through the study of the methodology of Edgar Cayce is a blend of the physical, emotional, and spiritual balance that a healer requires to be effective. One must begin to heal himself holistically, and as Cayce put it, that means beginning where you are, doing what is at hand. Often this has been given, and though it may be repeated again and again, there is only one way. Use what thou hast in hand day by day. Knowledge and understanding comes along with application and with self-experience in doing what is known to be in accord with his will. Example after example might be given from the experience of any individual. As they apply what is known, knowing in what they have believed, knowing in whom they have believed, keeping a comparison with the idea as the standard or gauge for judgment. They come to the knowledge of the forces which are manifested from experience to experience, day after day. So keep what thou hast proposed, and more understanding will come, which makes for peace and harmony in thy experience. Joy comes from doing and from seeing this manifest in the experience of others. Find fault with no one. Being a healer is a serious profession. It is not then to be presumed, supposed, or proposed to be a calling upon, a depending upon, a seeking for that which is without or that outside of self, but rather the attuning of self to the divine within, which is the divine, a universal or the universal consciousness. Healing is possible only if we are aware of who we are and we see ourselves as a channel of the power above us. To know whence we came is to know what we are up against. If we use the abilities we have, we will be given more tomorrow. The next step to take will be given us. The next step to take will be given us. When a person asked Cayce about healing ability, he responded, "This may be developed. The power, as does all good, must come from the one source. Then live thine own life in such a way and manner as to merit the use of such power, not to thine own glory, but to the glory of the giver of all good and perfect gifts." Again, in discussing healing ability, Cayce remarked that one's motivations certainly have to be taken into consideration. Why do you want to heal yourself? Aside from seeking relief from discomfort and pain, what are your true reasons? You would have to take each as an individual to say as to which may be the most successful. For there are grades, there are variations. There are in the group, as has been indicated, curiosity, wisdom, folly, and those things that make for real spiritual development. They each then require first self-analysis. What prompts the individual to seek, engage, or desire to join in such experiments? As to how far, as to what, there is no end. Is there any end to infinity? For this is the attunement then to infinity. Cayce saw the world in action, and he viewed man as part of that action. He saw healing in the physical body as being brought about through patience, persistence, and consistency. He met all problems in the same way, by applying the principles of truth which he said existed from the inception of time. And what are these principles of truth? Understanding, patience, kindness, forgiveness, those qualities which religious men call the fruits of the Spirit. Cayce wants us to understand that in attempting to heal ourselves, we are really healing others and vice versa. He placed great emphasis on putting the individual in balance with the environment, and this he saw as healing. And so we will see that many of the principles of self-healing, when properly mastered, will make us quite adept at establishing balance or healing for others outside of ourselves. Healing others is healing self. To give out what aids others to attain that which creates the perfect vibration of life in their physical bodies through the mental attitudes and aptitudes of the body, this brings to the self a better understanding. Yes, in healing others, one heals self. I heard that a long time ago, actually, that, of course, the old saying goes, you can't love someone if you don't love yourself. You can't care for others if you don't care for yourself. But I remember back in 2015, when I really even started touching spirituality, that when you heal others, you do heal yourself. And when you're healing yourself, you are inevitably healing others, because to know better and to not do better is devilish. And because you know better, you in turn automatically help others. Sorry, I just like to give a little commentary. When individuals apply themselves for the greater activity of self, in keeping with those things that bring only the activities of being true to self, it makes for the greater activities to the associations or family ties. For when one is true to self, one cannot be false to others if the self is the spiritual self. We begin to see now that Cayce was a very religious man, and that for him, healing was drawing on the power of a supreme being to reestablish harmony and balance in the self on the physical, spiritual, and mental planes. We who wish to be healers must also turn our eyes on the source of healing. For all healing comes from one source, and whether there is the application of foods, exercise, medicine, or even the knife, it is to bring to the consciousness of the forces within the body that aid in reproducing themselves, which is the awareness of creative or God forces. Cayce is not demanding that we change totally if we want to heal the self. All he asks for is sincere desire and a willingness to effect change, along with the courage to see it through. You are working under conditions that to you are not satisfactory. If you had the ideal conditions, you wouldn't give your best either, and don't fool yourself that you would, because he that says he would give to the poor if he had 1,000,000 and doesn't give when he has 10 cents wouldn't give if he had 1,000,000. The same applies of the preparation of those things that represent ideals and principles and purposes, not that ye are perfect, but that ye would grow. Come then in singleness of heart and in oneness of purpose, knowing that peace, mercy, and grace are granted when the faith, the hope are in him. Healing then for Cayce is a pure action of faith. All the miracles of healing arise out of faith alone. They are perfect examples of direct help from God, his direct answers to any prayer that has been given in absolute faith that it will be answered. For all healing, mental or material, is attuning each atom of the body, each reflex of the brain forces to the awareness of the divine that lies within each atom, each cell of the body. Know that there is within self all healing that may be accomplished for the body. For all healing must come from the divine. For who healeth thy diseases? The source of the universal supply. As the attitude then of self, how well do ye wish to be? How well are ye willing to cooperate, coordinate, and the divine influences which may work in through thee by stimulating the centers which have been latent with nature's activities? For all these forces must come from the one source, and the applications or treatments are merely to stimulate the atoms of the body. For each cell is a representation of a universe in itself. Then what would ye do with thy abilities? Sorry, I have a cat. She's elderly. And she went to go lay next to the radiator. It's summertime in Chicago. We don't have the radiator on, but it's still one of her favorite places. I don't know if you heard her jump up. Oh no, I'm one of those people. I actually lose it. Wish to be. How well are you willing to cooperate, coordinate with the divine influences which may work in and through thee by stimulating the centers which have been latent with nature's activities? For all these forces must come from the one source, and the applications or treatments are merely to stimulate the atoms of the body. For each cell is as a representative of a universe in itself. Then what would ye do with thy abilities? As ye give to others, not hating them, but of aiding them, to know more the universal forces, so may ye have the more, for God is love. Cayce is very optimistic about the power of healing, and this optimism stems no doubt from the contact that he and all healers make with the divine. Sorry, she just jumped down again. There are in truth no incurable conditions, for the condition is the breaking of a law, and the healing forces will of necessity become the compliance with other laws that meet the needs of the condition. The healing depends upon the individual and the attitude taken towards conditions. For the body renews itself every atom in 7 years. How would ye have lived for the past 7, and then the 7 before? What would ye do with thy mind and thy body if they were wholly restored to normalcy in this experience? Will these be put to the use of gratifying thine own appetites as at first? Will these be used for the magnifying of the appreciation of the love to the infinite? For who healeth all thy diseases? If ye think it is the doctor or the surgeon, who is thy doctor? Is his life different from your own? Life itself comes from the infinite. There ye must begin if ye would have healing for this body. I just wanted to comment on the body renewing itself every 7 years. There is a teacher that I have been listening to for years now. His name is Young Pharaoh, and he spoke about this actually years ago. Personally, I'm not religious. I was raised Christian, but as of recent years, I'm definitely not. Definitely more spiritual, and he actually said that years ago that when you're looking at the chakras, there's 7 main chakras that everyone knows about. Of course, there's chakras all throughout your body, but the 7 main chakras run on a 7-year basis. So the first 7 years of your life, you're living in your root chakra, where you're learning security and safety and standing your ground for things. Next 7 years, which would be your solar plexus, that has to do with your creativeness, your sexuality. So that's from 7 to 14, and then so on and so forth. I just turned, well, I have not yet. I will be turning 29 this year, so obviously that means I'm 28. And I am on the 4th chakra, which is my heart chakra. And I think it's interesting that I got pregnant a few months before my 28th birthday, which is the heart chakra. I'm sorry, I just wanted to give a little commentary, but I can definitely tell even now that having my baby and living in my heart chakra, it's a challenge. I'm crying. And I wanted to show this. I want to keep this in here because I don't know who may see this and maybe going through something similar, something completely different, maybe on the great side of it, but living in my heart chakra and having a baby, or going through the next 7 years living in my heart chakra and having a baby, I'm nervous, I'm scared, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I hope that someone sees this, and even if the situation isn't the same, that they find solace, they find, like, I know this sounds weird, but like companionship, just to know that they're not alone. I hope that they find hope. I'm gonna get back to the book. I'm sorry. I am a Leo, so I like to talk. Healing then for Cayce is simply being a channel for the divine. Since man has come from God, Cayce wants man to attempt to fully express that presence, that spirit within him. He says that thoughts are deed, and that what one thinks continually, that he becomes. What one seeks in his heart, he makes part of his being. If we want to awaken the power of healing within us, we must earnestly seek after the fruits of the Spirit. Heed first the physician in charge. Mechanical or material aid is needed here. Yet the great physician has been unheeded and unheralded. It is he who gives the greater promise through supplying the forces necessary to the mechanical to cure all individuals through the spirit or forces within. If we would master the art of healing, We must search our souls and our ideals. We must heal ourselves internally, so to speak, and put into practice what we know to be true. What we do this by making ourselves one with the divine source. How to do that is the subject of a later chapter. Suffice it to say for the moment that healing is possible, and Cayce places great emphasis on a spiritual conviction as the path to begin awakening this power within us. He wants us to have an ideal. Keeping a normal balance is what is necessary for this body. A balance in the mental, in the spiritual, and in the physical nature. As to corrective applications, we would consider first all of these from a spiritual angle, not merely something to be pondered over, but making a practical application and practical demonstration of this spiritual in the body's experience. Take a pad of paper and write, "My ideal." Would you begin with the physical life, or the home life, or the relationships between universal consciousness for the betterment of the human race? You should begin with the spiritual. Ask yourself, what is my ideal? Then know not only who it is, but what it stands for, and be sure it is able to answer for any experience that may or could come to the body, mind, or soul, or physical being. Not only would what you believe, but in whom you believe, and be certain that he is able to keep what you commit unto him against any day. We are primarily concerned at this moment with the inception of the healing experience within the healer to be. As is obvious, we are not at the point where we are giving the reader practical recipes for healing. That will come later. In the spirit of Cayce, we are showing you rather how vital and important the relationship of the self with the divine is. Without this, there can be no healing, despite the rituals and salves and mechanisms used. What Cayce is attempting to instruct the healer in should be obvious. He doesn't want the person to allow his ego to get in the way and block the channel of healing, nor does he want the healer to fear disappointments and possible failure. To that end, then, it is worthwhile considering the necessary motivation behind an experience in self-healing. The body should not lose courage to carry on, but working in patience, knowing that all healing, all help must arise from constructive thinking, constructive application, and most and first of all, constructive spiritual application. Use body disturbances as stepping stones for higher and better and greater understanding. Cayce will give us many recipes for healing. He will not ignore the practical applications of his teachings. An example follows. Case 3607-2, when asked why the spot on side doesn't clear up, was given an answer which might apply to any trouble for anyone. Don't be impatient. Did it grow in a day? Don't expect it to be eliminated in a day or a month. It took years to grow, and it will require several months to disappear, but it will be eliminated if we follow through. It is just as bad to overdo in taking of medicine as it is to underdo. Do as given. Case 583-7 asks, has the body a tendency toward cancer? If not, why the disturbance and itching of moles and beauty spots at times? Cayce responded quite practically again. The conditions as are produced about are more from poor eliminations as are shown in the body and the nerve reaction as is seen than that of the tendency towards cancerous condition. For as we have given, cancerous conditions are where cellular forces have congregated on account of irritation or poor elimination and irritation following, and the system attempting to relieve same sets up from broken cellular tissues, the condition from within which becomes malignant. In this body, there is not an indication at present of any malignant serum or tissue in the body. There are indications of poor eliminations and misdirected nerve tissue. See? We will discover then that Cayce does not want us to ignore the physical in the healing process. That would be ridiculous. What he does when he tells us to begin with the proper ideal and spiritual attitude is simply emphasize that these are vital to the effectiveness of the physical. In fact, Cayce has two pillars of self-healing and they are 1, persistence, and 2, attunement, which are both on the mental and spiritual planes, but we will go into these at greater length later. Suffice it for now to realize that he is not exaggerating the spiritual, if that even be possible. Cayce wants us to learn his recipes for healing. He would not have given them to us otherwise, but he wants us to use them efficaciously. I hope I'm saying that word correctly. He doesn't want us to hoard them. You have the recipes all your own. Keep them, but give them away if you would keep them. For remember, you can never lose anything that really belongs to you, and you can't keep that which belongs to someone else. No matter if it is spiritual, mental, or material, the law is always the same. Know that what is truly thine cannot be taken away from thee, nor is any real character ever lost. It should seem obvious then that for Cayce, healing means generosity and giving of oneself, both on the physical and spiritual levels. He seems to insist on the motivation constantly. Become then a channel of blessing to others, and thus may the beauties of the heavenly forces, as may be and such, be thy very own. It is up to the entity then in its experience, in its associations with others, in its dealing with opportunity with others, with conditions and circumstances, to use all in a constructive way and manner. And when there are those periods when disturbance and disappointments come, to have in the spiritual ideas, the mental and physical purposes, that which will keep the body from seeking only gratifying of physical appetites. Healing for Cayce is also persistency. It is not expecting immediate results and then giving up if these do not happen. Rather, for him, healing is truly a way of life, an adjustment of attitudes and a renewal of the self, so as to be an effective channel of balance for self and others. Let the scars be removed from thy own mental and spiritual self. Turn to those things of making application of the fruits of the spirit of truth, love, patience, gentleness, kindliness, long-suffering, brotherly love, putting away those little tendencies for being catty at times, or being selfish, or expressing jealousy and such. Let the mind be in thee as was in him, who is the way, the truth, and the light, and he will make the light of love so shine through thee countenance that few, if any, will ever see the scars made by self-indulgence in other experiences. I'm so sorry. Like I said, I have a baby, and those phantom cries, I know you parents understand. Yeah, there was no cry. Wow, I'm losing it. It is by thy smile and not a word spoken that the day may be made brighter for many a soul, and in making the day brighter, even for a moment, ye have contributed to the whole world of affairs. If you want seriously to begin the work of healing, then Cayce suggests that you get your own house in order. He insists on renewal of the self because later on he will show us how to get in touch with the divine so that we may channel the healing power through ourselves to others. But one should not put oneself down and think that he is too lowly or too debased to be a healer. For he who hath the will to do, who proposes in his heart to do, may accomplish whatever he seeth fit. Someone asked Cayce how he could know when the will to a course of action is justifiable, or when he would know that he was forcing himself, fearing that such forcing could lead to inaction. Those who wish to be healers would do well to heed his answer. By the listening within, there is the answer. For the answer to every problem, the answer to know his way, is ever within. These appear at times to become contradictory, of course, but know, as the illustration has been used here, atonement, and at one-ment are one. Just as the inner is ever at work with the infinite stamina, faith, patience, or whatnot, yet each entity, each soul knows within when it is at at one. Cayce, as we see, feels that everyone who wants can get in touch with the divine and effectively heal self and others. He does not lay down impossible conditions and only asks that a person understand this ability and utilize it in the proper way. There must first be the incentive from within to make the body whole. Gain consciousness of your own condition, how the attributes of the mental together with the nerve system may control circulation, assimilation, and the subconscious soul forces. Thus, within the self, through physical rest and oneness with the higher forces, there may come the full understanding of how the entity may raise its own forces and not be continually blaming others for existing conditions. Meet these disturbances consciously, knowing that they are of your own making and to be worked out by yourself for your own development. Then give of yourself more to the developing of others, letting them have the advantage of the knowledge you have attained. For it is well that we all understand this. That which we give enriches us, rather than which we receive. That was my cat. I don't know if you heard that. She actually just spooked me. Sorry, that really actually just spooked me for real. For it is well that we all understand this, that which we give enriches us rather than which we receive. A good account of one's every work depends upon our ability to give to others the knowledge and understanding you have. Add to it love, virtue, knowledge, and faith, the very forces from which are directed and guided by the source from which all help comes. Healing then is an art that is open to anyone. Once we learn the obstacles that keep us from utilizing this power, we are on our way. Thus far, we have learned that anyone can be a channel of healing, provided he opens himself up to the divine consciousness. Our understanding from reading and studying the Cayce text presented here is that provided a person is willing to effect radical changes in his own personal attitude and emotions, healing can take place through his efforts. As Cayce puts it, seek within thy own heart, purge it from every thought that would separate thee from the love of the Christ consciousness. We should tell thee thou art worthy of this or that. Not through these channels, for all having access to the Father always, as he dwells in thy heart. Put into activity what thou knowest to do, guided by the love and protection that come from knowing the Christ abides in thee. When he asked the following question, viz., please explain the differences between ways in which healing may be received, the one in which pain gradually leaves, and the other as if pain is being drawn from the body by a vacuum. Cayce replied, these are dependent upon the individual development of the one upon whom the application is made. This happens much in the same manner as in the cleansing of cloth of various textures, for example, or as cleansing agents might be applied to elements that produce strains upon another element. This, then, is the difference between the two, the attunement of the individual upon whom the application is made. Healing is the use of power, natural power. It is educing the natural power within oneself or awakening the power in another. Cayce was asked, how can one direct the vibration culminating in the head to the one he would aid? He answered, by thought. Now we are speaking of a purely mechanical, metaphysical, spiritual activity which would take place. One has directed his thought to an individual who is to receive the blessing of that power or force so raised. Those who would heal raise within themselves that which may be sent out as a power, and it passes to those who are in attunement or in accord. If they were present, a much greater force might be felt, to be sure, and less strain upon the physical body. The self is the source of healing, whether it be for our own needs or the others. If we block the channel, then the power cannot go forth. Keep that attitude of constructive, creative forces within self. For all healing of every nature must arise within the self. For there is the ability within the physical body to recreate or reproduce itself, as well as the activities for assimilating that from which the recreation is brought about. Can the physical body be regenerated or repurified? Is healing even possible? To this question, Cayce answered, this is a matter of the form of consecration of the mind, the soul, the body to the creative forces that may manifest through every soul that has and does put on the holy armor of the rising Lord. For he has shown the way, not by some mysterious fluid, not by some unusual vibration, but by the simple method of living, that which is life itself. Think no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, and as the truth flows as a stream on life through the mind in all its phases or aspects, and purifies the same, so will it purify and revivify, I'm not sure how to say the word, and rejuvenate the body. Healing then is coordination, bringing into focus the power within us and the touch of the divine unconsciousness. Healing is possible because there is a law that governs the rejuvenation of the body, and that tells us disease is simply imbalance. We can work to help others as long as we are willing to comply with the law. When the law is coordinated in spirit, in mind, and in body, the entity is capable of fulfilling the purpose for which it enters a material or physical experience. Cayce even tells us that permanent cures can be obtained, and that for this to happen, it depends upon the consistency and the general mental and spiritual attitude of the entity. Let us now take a closer look at what Cayce saw as the root of disease and sickness, realizing that health for him is balance or coordination between the body, mind, and spirit, and realizing as well that healing is basically achieved through proper attunement with the divine. We ought to realize that he will have very definite teachings on the nature of illness. Okay. I had to put my little book back together. So that was chapter 1. Thank you again for joining me. Next time I will be doing chapter 2. If I look tired, I did wake up at 5 in the morning to film, because she's 5 months, and so she can actually sleep throughout the night, thankfully. So me filming during the daytime, I can't do it. But I can wake up early enough to make sure I film, so I can read this book to you guys. I really hope this book finds the ears that it needs to find. I hope that while I'm on my journey of self-healing as well, that I'm able to aid anybody, even just with the book. I don't have real advice to give. I'm not in a position to give advice. I'm just in a position to share the information that I know, and I hope that it helps. Please enjoy your day. Please, what did I say? Shoot, I knew it right when I got done. Please enjoy your day. Please be safe. Please be happy and well, and take care, okay? Bye.